So we're at Micro Center today and we're gonna do an interesting video. You guys know lately I've been doing a bunch of like marketplace purchases or like Craigslist purchases and showing what kind of deals you can get in the used space. But what if you don't want to take the risk of having some shady skeevy guy sell you something that's either stolen or doesn't work? We're gonna talk about open box items today. So today we're at Micro Center. We're gonna shop for best open box items that we can find to save as much money as possible and talk about things you need to consider when you buy an open box item from a brick and mortar store like Micro Center. Today's video is brought to you by the new, really super cool JSUSense Melty connector shirt, paying tribute to one of the best designs that's clearly ever existed. And if you don't like the Vaporwave colors, we've got our OG gray and red colors available now. So get yours by following the link in the description below. Nice. Ow, I have a thigh cramp. Okay, so huge thanks to Micro Center for sponsoring today's video and letting us come into the store and really just sort of peruse and look at whatever we want when it comes to open box. So open box is interesting. Micro Center has basically a 30-day return policy on even all PC components, including CPUs and stuff. So there's a real opportunity to be able to find some good deals on items that have been returned. Now, the first question you probably are asking yourself is, why was the product returned? There's many different reasons. Maybe the person bought it, realized they couldn't quite afford it, or they had some buyer's remorse for whatever reason. Performance aside, they take the product back to Micro Center. What Micro Center does is they open up the box, check to make sure everything looks like it's there, make sure there's no physical damage to it. GPUs actually get bench tested to make sure they're working. They slap a sticker on there that has basically can tell you even if there's missing items, like we'll talk about this GPU in a second. And then they discount the price because of the fact that it's no longer considered brand new unopened. So there's a lot of deals that you can find there. Other things that let's talk about a little bit on the shady side of why people might return something to a store. And this is something that definitely exists in like CPUs, overclocking and or silicon lottery. Oftentimes people will buy CPU, test it, try and overclock it, not get the scores they want, or it's not necessarily a great overclocker, package it up, return it to the store, go to another store or buy another one at the same store and do this multiple times until they get one that they want. So that means there's nothing technically wrong with the CPU, but it's kind of somebody using an exploit of a return policy to be able to try and get an advantage for themselves. I've never personally done that, but I know of a lot of people that have done that. Another reason why people might return something to the store is they might have accidentally physically damaged it. And then what that means is they're going to return it, cross their fingers, hope and say it's not working, hope the person taking in the return doesn't notice any sort of damage on it, and then next thing you know, you are going to be the one absorbing any of the damage. Fortunately though, when it comes to that sort of risk, it's offset by the fact that you bought it at a legit brick and mortar, in our instance here, Micro Center, which has the same return policy on open box items. So if you get it and something is weird and not working, you do have the recourse of taking it back to the store, getting it looked at, and or returning it to get your money back to then buy another product. So that's where it's a little safer to deal with open box items when it comes versus buying used on a marketplace. The difference is used on a marketplace is typically going to have lower prices than even open box items at a store. So this is kind of like a perfect middle ground between new and pre-owned, used, and being sold for someone upgrading or needing money or whatever. We're going to kind of shop around right now and see what we can find. I've already looked at the GPUs. They keep all the GPUs in the back. They're not in like with all the regular GPUs. This is a MSI RTX 4060 Ti. I feel like people shopping open box, even though they have open box all the way at the top tier as well, they have several 4090 open box items back there at like $300 to $400 off the price. It's actually a pretty significant cut. But I figure most people looking at open box or looking for significant discounts are probably shopping in a more mid-tier or maybe even entry-level type of price point. So shopping really high, although everyone loves saving money, I feel it probably is gonna make more sense to sort of target this mid-range, mid-high-end, mid-low-end, like right in the middle to make it incentivizing for people. So as you can see here, this GPU is $514.99. It's sold as is. And then $463 is the current price. So I guess I should start keeping a tally here of what everything would have cost and what it's actually gonna cost us. So how much did we save right here? So we went from 514, 463. So we saved $51 on this part alone. You're not gonna be able to necessarily do this in the store, but we're gonna do this right now to sort of show you guys. Let's open it up and see what's inside. So this one actually has a box, but they have several back there that are just either in anti-static bags. Those tend to be refurbs that came back from the manufacturer in the anti-static bags, or maybe just a vanilla brown box. Some of them have like different boxes that they didn't originally come in. Sometimes it has just the GPU that was returned. So Micro Center's return policy is interesting in that they'll take pretty much any, they're like Costco. Costco will take anything back, like even years from now. Now, Micro Center's 30 days, but they'll take it back even if you're missing stuff. It's kind of crazy in my opinion. I think that's a little nuts, but that's just me. All right, so opening it up, here's the foam. Nice to see that we do have the anti-static bag. I'm gonna do a little inspection on this right now. And you know what, to be fair, you can do this with the associate in the store. If you're like, can we open it up and take a look? They'll absolutely say, yes, let's open it up together, and they'll look at it with you. If you have any questions or concerns, you can even go over to the tech bar with the associate if you want, and they can kind of look at it for physical damage too. All the pins do appear to be in pretty good shape. I don't see any damage or wear on there. I don't see any scratching or anything. All the plastic has been removed, but I don't even see any dust in this. Like, I don't see a lick of dust on this at all. And I know for a fact they're not taking the time to go through and like clean these GPUs and stuff. So this was probably very lightly used. I did ask them, like, what's the #1 reason a person returns a GPU? And it's almost always they decided they wanted something more powerful. So they get it home, they couldn't turn their settings as high as they wanted, so then they take it back, get a full refund, and then put that money into another card. We still have our warranty card, so this is good, but it even has the GPU bracket or anti-sag bracket, which is so unnecessary for this GPU because it's very light. So this is actually a pretty solid deal right here. I don't feel like this is one I would feel concerned about using. So there we go. Let's go ahead now and take a look at motherboards. And the reason for that is although they do take CPUs back, they do have a return policy for CPUs. It's 30 days, AMD or Intel. But they don't really keep them in store and they don't really resell them as open box. They send them back to the manufacturer and then they might get those back as a refurb. Even though there may be nothing wrong with them, because they went to the manufacturer, went through the testing process again, and were sent out a second time, it qualifies as refurbished, even though that means nothing may have been physically touched inside of it. So refurb should be a whole nother discussion we talk about in the future. So I want to shop motherboards to find my platform, then shop a CPU to put on there. And today's goal is to hopefully make the CPU free by saving enough money by getting open box items everywhere else that we can. Okay, so this might be the sketchiest section when it comes to nerves because first of all, there's a lot of motherboards. These are all open box right here. And my very first question to the associate today was, why are there so many? Because in my mind, I go, there's a lot of opportunity for bent pins. There's a lot of opportunity for something maybe that was damaged. So you kind of look at it and go, why are there so many here? However, the response was, well, a lot of times people will buy a bundle and they return the bundle, whether they returned it because they wanted a different CPU or whatever, they return the whole bundle. So a lot of the motherboards get returned as part of a bundle return, not because there was something necessarily wrong with the motherboard. So I think I want to find an Intel motherboard because that's the one that has the highest likelihood of damage when it comes to the pins. So Intel is actually LGA, which is a land grid array, which means all the pins are on the motherboard. Whereas AMD up to through AM4 is PGA, which is a pin grid array, which means that their pins are on the CPU. AM5 motherboards from AMD, however, also LGA now like Intel, where the pins are on the motherboard. So I'm gonna find myself, I'm kind of targeting a 14700K to see if we can pay for that. If we can just pay for the CPU out of open box savings. Here's an MSI Pro Z690, $229, now $95. Now it does say right here, incomplete. So that means there's something missing out of this box. This would be like an amazing deal at 95 bucks. It's a Z chipset from $229 to $95. I did ask about the return policy on motherboards. He did say that they open it up, they will look for damage, and they will look at the pins. However, they do not plug it in and they do not put the CPU in there and they do not do a post test. So this is the one thing where it's like, okay, you might be really crossing your fingers here that there's nothing damaged. So here we go. It's got the chipset, or excuse me, the CPU cover, which is nice. The pins appear to be, so it's hard to see, but the pins do appear to be in perfect condition. So, okay, I think these two items alone are pretty damn close to paying for my CPU. Let's see what other accessories are in or not in the box, because this is where I'm curious as to what is considered incomplete. So here's the IO chip. It was never even opened. So we do have our antennas, so that's good because it is a Wi-Fi board, so these could have been missing. And then we have our two SATA cables, and then this is our M.2 hold down screws right here. So Well, it's one of them anyway. It's just the little latch. I feel like, oh, here's the other one. We've got all of our M.2 hold downs, our antennas. I'm not entirely sure what's missing, to be honest. I want to see now if there's anything nearly as crazy for maybe a DDR5, because DDR5 RAM is not that expensive anymore. If not, screw it, we'll go DDR4. I'm okay with that. So looking through all the OpenBox, there are like 4 or 5 of these Asus Prime Z790 VWiFi boards that are DDR5. Was originally, and this one's been here since January of 2024. So in case you're wondering how this works, they were telling me every 30 days it sits on the shelf as an OpenBox item, they reduce the price again. Until there's obviously got to be a point where they stop reducing it or it becomes zero, right? But it was $175. It's currently $109.96. So this has been sitting here for over 6 months, about 6 months actually. But anyway, so I just wanted to point this out. We're going to stick with the DDR4 board, but for $15 more, could have gone with DDR5. So just with everything going on with all the Asus stuff right now, I really don't want to support that brand. So what we're going to do is we're just going to stick with the MSI and DDR4, which should hopefully make our DDR4 a little bit less expensive. So one thing to mention too is that they do not do OpenBox RAM here. He said they used to, but they don't anymore. So we're going to be looking for something new when it comes to RAM. But let's see, what have we saved already so far? So this originally was a $229 board and 99 cents. And it's currently $95.96. That's $134 in savings right there, plus the $51 we've already saved. We're at $185 in savings so far by just going OpenBox on these 2 items. Now the 14700K was $289, so you can see we're only $100 away from paying for our CPU. We've still got power supply, we've still got a cooler, we've still got storage, which is going to also have to be new. We've got a case. I think there's an opportunity for OpenBox cases as well. That's one where you might potentially be missing a lot of stuff, so we need to look at that. Let's go look at power supplies. So in the power supply aisles here, they keep the OpenBox stuff mixed in. So anything with a yellow sticker is an OpenBox. Now PowerSpec, people may not know, is actually Micro Center's in-house brand. The only non-PowerSpec OpenBox item that I see is a Thor from Asus ROG. It's 1200 watts, it's $300. We don't need anything like that. We have an SFX option for $850. We have an ATX 3.0 right here, 850 watt for $71. We have 850 watt 80 plus gold non-PCIe or ATX 3.0, not PCIe Gen 5, so $71. So between these two, I'd obviously go for the Gen ATX 3.0. But then we also have a 650 watt right here for $63.96. I would personally go for the 850 at $7 more, or actually $8 more, because it gives us forward compatibility on going with a bigger GPU. 650 watts is fine up until about a 4080. Anything beyond then, if you try and go 4080 Super, 4080 Ti, does the 4080 Ti even exist? Whatever, 4090, whatever the next gen is gonna be in its nuclear capacitor needed level of power delivery, I'd rather have the headroom. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the ATX 3.0, where did I stick it? Which is the same price. And because of the fact that it's a Micro Center in-house brand, I feel comfortable with this because if anything was weird with it, we could bring it back to the store. This is also assuming you live close enough to a store. So let's open this up, make sure all the cables are there. The one thing people may not like is the red connectors, but at this point, we're trying to save money here, so I would take the red connector and save money. It is fully modular, so here's our 24 pin, everything's there. Wall plug. So this is CPU power, 24 pin, PCI Express. Here's our SATA. Here is another SATA, another SATA. SATA's a floppy, or Molex to floppy adapter. Okay, and then here is our plug right here for the 600 watt, or it's a 450 watt, I take that back. So it's it can't do 600, that doesn't leave enough. So yeah, it's a 450, which means technically we wouldn't be able to run an overclocked 4090 with this, but it could run a standard 4090. But anyway, I think the 850 for $8 more is just better in terms of efficiency curve than going with the 650 and saving $8. This is not an ultra budget build. This is a what can we save build. So the original price of this was $89. It's $79 now. So that's an $18 savings plus the $185 we already sold. We're at $203. The cents is incorrect because I'm not putting cents in there really, but we're at $203 of our $289 for our CPU. So we're well underway here. We need to look at CPU coolers now. We are gonna probably have open box stuff there. That's one where every screw, bracket, hold down, spacer, it all matters. If you're missing any of that, you can't mount it right. So let's go see if we can take any chances. The downside about trying to stick with open box everything as much as we can is sometimes there's just not any open boxes to choose from. So we have a Pure Rock 2 from Be Quiet. Dang it just got returned yesterday. So what I was gonna be like is if it was on like the cusp of being 30 days, I'd be like, what's the next step down? It's only a $44 cooler that's down to $35, so we're saving $9 bucks. I do have a 13700K. I kept calling it a 14700 earlier in this video. I apologize, it is a 13700K. But check this out. The screen printed thermal paste, geez, maybe that's why they returned it. They couldn't get the plastic off. Okay, whatever. The screen printed thermal paste is still on there, so it was never mounted. So that's a good sign. This should be here's our fan right here. So it's a single fan. And then we've got all of our hardware here. Oh, I almost knocked it off the thing. I definitely almost bought it. Okay, so here's our brackets, AMD and Intel. Everything, I've put enough of these together to know that everything is in here. Both of the hold down screws for the centerpiece that goes across the center. So there's that, which is good. Those, fortunately, are standard thread. You could find, I think they're M3s, you can find these. But you don't want to have to go searching for something. If you saved $8, but then you have to go to Lowe's and take the time and the gas or whatever, then that sucks. But okay, so everything appears to be here. I don't know about you, but $8 is $8. So the nice thing about the case section at Micro Center is everything is out and built and on display. So you know what it looks like, the build quality, the weight, the size, so you don't go, oh, this is too big or too small. Anyway, but for whatever reason, people return cases quite frequently. So we have an entire section of open box cases. We're gonna go see what kind of deal we can find. Fortunately, we don't need anything crazy because we don't have a crazy high-end build happening here. So we can get away with a pretty good savings, I think, hopefully. It just depends on how much you're actually marking them down. And if they're anything like me, when it comes to cases, they don't want to be storing these things forever because of the amount of space they take up. So I hope they discount them deep. That way they just get them out of the warehouse. Okay, so this is so they got a Landcool 216 tempered glass, which I really like right here for 79 bucks. It's 20 bucks off of the $99 original price. This was just returned yesterday, or at least tagged yesterday. But we also have the 205 mesh tempered glass ATX in white right here for $71. We do like the 205 a lot. It's not a huge case. It's only $8 difference from this. I'm a little tempted because of the fact that for $8 more, I might go with the full-size one. That way we have room to grow. Because again, we don't want the case to be so small that in the future we have a problem fitting any of the larger components. Let's go ahead and open this one up. I'm gonna check this one real quick. Yeah, so we have 2 intake fans and an exhaust fan. So we're good there. We have no fans for the top. I don't think I'm gonna add any to this, but I'm telling you right now, this was never opened. Okay. Okay, so I'm at $223 saved by going open box. Now, the 13700K is $289. We're paying 65 bucks for our CPU by going all open box. The stuff that we've looked at so far, as you can see, we didn't really compromise on anything, other than the fact that maybe it didn't have as much of a shiny sticker on it that we had to peel off. We still have to go buy storage, and we still have to go buy RAM. So let's go take a look at that stuff. So it says $57.99 on here. It's actually not. We got, this is the right set, right? Yeah. Okay, so it's $37.99 for 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3600. They had a $34 set, $3 cheaper for 3200. We'll go with the faster RAM. And I found this. It's $29.99. It is it's two 16 gig sticks, so it's 32 gigs of 3600 CL18 Neo Forza. Yeah, it's by Gold Key. So I don't know anything about this brand, so I really don't want to try it. I know they worked in some other areas of PC components. This is like the only one they have. So I'm gonna go with T-Force. We've used it quite a bit in our more budget builds. I think this is more in the spirit of like what we're looking for here. If we were doing like ultra budget benchmarking in some way, I'd go with something like this, but I think the T-Force Vulcan Z is what we're gonna go with here. And then storage, I'm just gonna find one of the best like 1 terabyte deals of NVMe that I can find. You see Crucial on our channel all the time. But the reason for that is it's just really hard to beat the deals you get from them. It says 119 on here right now for this 1 terabyte P3 Plus, which is a Gen 4, so it's 5,000 megabytes per second. But it's $75. So even shopping Inland, which is like the internal brand for Micro Center, like we're looking at like the same price, but we've just had such good success with Crucial. I mean, Crucial's Micron, and this sounds like a sponsored bid. It's not. This is just the way it works out. So there we go. Let's go ahead and add all this up. Let's see what our total price is, because I honestly don't know, because I'm kind of stuck with the open box items that were here. But I think it's gonna be fun to put this together and see how it actually performs too, because I don't think we sacrificed anything in terms of quality, risk, and we still have the ability to return it to the store, and we still have warranties on this stuff from the manufacturers. So the total price of this build is $1,194.45. One thing I want to point out is you guys may have already commented this. Yes, this is a 12th gen board, so we are gonna have to do a BIOS flash on it. It does have a BIOS flashback button. I already checked that. So we might have, it was manufactured after 13th gen had been out for a while. So we're hoping it has a laid enough BIOS on it to be able to work. If not, we can use a USB stick, put the BIOS flash on there through MSI's utility and their BIOS on their website, and then push that button, it'll flash, and we should be up and running. But anyway, $1,194. So I'm not gonna do that math in my head, but anyway, we were at $223, right? Plus 1194, so that would have been a nearly $1,500 build. So $1,417-ish, and this is prior to any sort of tax and stuff, so that's exactly how it works out. All right, there it is, completely built, even with our extremely contrasting white GPU. I probably could have gone in the back and found a black one, to be honest. The color at this point, it's personal, subjective, it's subjective on color, and I'm sure we could find a black one, or I could have found a white case. Anyway, everything works. Nothing was missing per se. So just as I suspected though, the cooler was missing the 2 fan clips. I didn't notice them. Some people watching the video might have noticed the clips weren't there. And the 4 little O-rings that are used to hold the backplate screws in place on the backplate were also missing. None of those were actually detrimental to us going like, we have to make another trip somewhere to be able to make this PC work. So all I did was put the 4 posts through the backplate, sticking up like flat on the table here. So they're sticking up, and then I just put the board down on the back plate and then put the 4 retention screws to hold it in place as it's supposed to be. And then as you can see here, I did my zip tie trick, which is super easy. I just run a zip tie through the cooler, through the fan, and then put another zip tie on the end and clip it. And as you can see, it's not going anywhere, getting the job done. In fact, getting the job done, CPU is currently at 30C. So clearly it is working just fine. All of our RAM shows up. We got 16 gigabytes of our DDR4. And we do have an XMP profile of 3600. I haven't restarted the PC yet on enabling it. One thing I want to point out though is even though this board was returned in April, it has a BIOS build date of 1/16/24. This predates any of the Intel overvolting, over power limiting that pretty much every motherboard manufacturing is doing. So even though I did not have to flash the BIOS, by the way, to make it work, I just want to point out the build of the motherboard is new enough to where that BIOS supports 13th gen, which came out long before that. So it makes, I was hoping it would work fine. It'd be different if 13th gen had just come out a month or 2 ago versus when I bought this, then I would need to do a BIOS flashback. But what I want to point out though is if I go over here now to advanced CPU configuration, you can see it's got all of the ridiculously basically unlimited power watts, 56 seconds still on the thermal velocity boost, but 512 amps again, which is essentially unlimited. So we would have to go in here and manually set those or update the BIOS to the latest safe BIOS. Otherwise this 13700K with those settings, with that cooler, is going to throttle if I did something like Cinebench. The last thing I need to do is make sure our drive is showing up. There it is right there. There's our CT1000P3 Plus SSD. So drive is showing, everything works as expected. So I didn't install Windows on here because that's the one thing that we did not account for in the budget is the OS. And we've talked about this a million times. There's a million places you can get your OS, whether it be through like some CD key vendor or whatever. Some of those are sketch, some are legit. I don't know, I don't use them. I have no idea which one you could trust. You might even be building a Linux system, so you wouldn't need Windows at all and you're using a free open source OS at that point. So there you go, everything works. I'm happy with the way it works. We even got RGB. I forgot there were RGB fans in the front of it. So anyway, there's that. The real eyesore here, to be honest, is the red on the power spec cables. And I think if I had gone with the older PSU that was not ATX 3.0, I don't think they were red actually. But I like having that plug for future compatibility. Otherwise, if we tried to step up to like a 4070, 4080 GPU, we would have needed an adapter to be able to go from PCI Express to ATX 3.0 plug or 12 volt high power on the end. I'm glad everything worked and I don't look like a fool. I look like a fool all the time, but I don't want to do it on purpose or accidentally. Accidentally on purpose. Just like you can accidentally subscribe and like this video if you like the idea of doing open box stuff. I'm not sure what other types of approaches we can take to more budget stuff. I mean, we talked about used. We'll continue to do the used series because as generations move on, used stuff continues to move along with it, just usually a gen or two behind. And open box stuff will have the same thing. Now, the nice recourse regarding this versus buying used is the fact that, as I've already said, if something was not working right, we have recourse. We can return it and get a full refund of our money. If you buy it off, hoodie wearing guy in a back alley that only accepts $100 bills, good luck. You could try to get your money back. Yes, but the second you message the guy and say, hey, this isn't working, you're gonna hear crickets and you're gonna be ghosted like that. In fact, you were probably already blocked before you even realized it wasn't working if the guy was intentionally scamming you. So anyway, there you go. It works. Thank goodness for that. And $223 cheaper than if we bought everything with new stickers on it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.